And right now, let's talk about the damage being done to this country because of wide open borders with empowered cartels. We should say that having cartels having operational control of our border to the detriment of the well-being of the United States and its citizens, or the migrants who seek to come here getting put into the human and sex trafficking trade, that somehow that should be seen as a compassionate position by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I note that Vice President Harris finally found her way to the border, although it was in a pit stop on her way to Los Angeles, taking 4 hours to stop in El Paso for a photo op to go say hi to some Border Patrol en route to Los Angeles. That's not the kind of visit that we've been talking about that is required of the President of the United States or his appointee, the Vice President, who is supposedly in charge of securing the border of the United States. And I would note that this is real. That for those of us who go and spend time on the border and talk to ranchers getting overrun, talking to people getting harmed, getting broken into, high-speed chases in communities in South Texas, the massive amounts of opioids flowing into Texas and throughout the rest of our country, the number of migrants being abused in the human and sex trafficking trade, it is very real. To the little girls that I've spoken to on the border and visited with at midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, coming across the river and the dangers that they have been put into, I would ask my Democrat colleagues why they don't care. Why don't my Democratic colleagues care about these migrants being abused and exploited by cartels? Today, right now, as we speak, a child is on an interstate in Texas heading to be put into child pornography and into the sex trafficking trade as we speak in the People's House. It's happening literally at this moment. Some amount of opioids is going into I-10, flowing over through Houston, throughout the rest of the Southeast to be distributed throughout our country, heading west on I-10 to go out to the West Coast. Why did Governor DeSantis send resources to Texas? Because his state is getting overrun by opioid abuse that is coming through the southwest border. We have a massively wide open border that is being exploited. And the reality of the situation is it is my Democratic colleagues who refuse to enforce the law. It is that simple. Think from October to December of 2020, in the previous administration, there were 185,000 expulsions made under Title 42, 85% of all encounters. Think about that. 85% of the encounters we were able to expel under Title 42. Compared to the Biden administration, since relaxing Title 42, not yet eliminating it, although that's allegedly coming, relaxing it, only 64% of encounters were enforced between February to April of 2021, leaving 289,000 expulsions under Title 42. So what will happen when that additional 60% of people are taken in? Border Patrol can't do their job, y'all. They can't. Border Patrol is overrun. Our border is wide open between the ports of entry because the Border Patrol is processing people at processing centers in McAllen. The Vice President would know that if she hadn't missed the mark by 750 miles, landing her plane in El Paso instead of McAllen. Tomorrow, 30 to 40 of my colleagues on this side of the aisle, unfortunately 0 to the best of my knowledge on the other side of the aisle, are going to the border to meet with Governor Abbott and former President Trump to talk about what's happening in McAllen, where the actual crisis exists. My friend from Pennsylvania rightly noted that COVID still remains a major public health issue at the border, a risk for Americans and migrants. Latin America and the Caribbean have the world's highest death toll from COVID in proportion to population, with 33 million reported infections and 1 million reported deaths. Brazil leads the region. It leads the world in a daily average number of new infections reported. Colombia is reporting the highest rate of infections in South America. Guatemala is at peak. Honduras is at 86% of peak. Border Patrol had 9,000 CBP employees test positive. 32 CBP employees have died. As of March, 7.4% of tests given to UACs in the past year turned out to be positive, and multiple facilities have had positivity rates of 10% or higher. That's the reality of what's going on at the border. Yet Title 42, the health code provisions that allow us to secure the border during a pandemic, during the spread of communicable diseases, is about to be jettisoned by the Biden administration, endangering the American people and endangering our Border Patrol.
But we're going to the real part of the border where there's real problems, not a part where you look around and you don't see anybody. We're going to admire the wall and how it works, because wherever we have the wall, that's what made the big difference.
This to Team Biden, an administration that creates problems. Its policy decisions are based solely off doing the opposite of President Trump, even when Trump's policies were working, right? Like, what kind of policies am I talking about? How about the wall? Remain in Mexico while awaiting asylum decisions. Instant deportation, maybe the most effective policy President Trump had in place, flying unaccompanied minors back to their home country. President Trump had squashed all the incentives to come here illegally. And now, with every successful Trump order tossed by Biden, America is pushed further into chaos.
All Biden had to do is go to the beach. If he would have just done nothing, we would have now the strongest border we've ever had.